And welcome back, high performers, to another High Performance Vet Pro Touchcast and Podcast. This is Ryan Smith, and this week we're talking about stress, but more specifically, we're talking about the mechanisms why you make excuses and why you're not getting things done whenever you know they're correct for you. So early in the week, we asked the question, when someone suggests a healthy lifestyle change, why do you make excuses about why it won't work for you? So when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about stress, the mechanisms, and those excuses that you come up with. Talk to you real soon. And welcome back to High Performance Vet Pro Touchcast and Podcast. Again, this is Ryan Smith. And this week, as we're talking about stress, and this really kind of comes from our talk that we just did this past weekend at the KVMA Mid-America Conference, where we actually had a whole hour that we talked about stress and resilience. And we asked this question this week of, when someone suggests a healthy lifestyle change, why do you make excuses about why it won't work for you? If you really think about this, this is not just, hey, somebody says I need to eat better. We all know that we should probably eat better, but why do we make excuses, and why do we think that it won't work for us? And it really comes down to stress and threat and how our brain perceives this recommended change. So what we want to do is we actually want to kind of dive a little bit into the processes of the brain and how it actually works. So we're going to go a little bit evolutionary here, so to speak, not necessarily from a Darwin standpoint, but more from just what's happening within the brain. So if we kind of look and break down the brain into a couple different sections, we have one of the things that is what we would consider the reptilian or the lizard brain. That is the brain stem and the cerebellum. This, by some, is considered the more primitive part of our brain. And it really has, we kind of refer to it as the 5 F's, which 2 of them are all about the advancement of the species, which would be food and fornication. And then whenever there is a perceived threat, it's all about fight, flight, or freeze. So this is about self-preservation. So with that, this is whenever any type of threat is sensed, it is actually the brain is going to say, okay, I have to do whatever I can to survive. So whenever me as a trainer, and I'm talking to people about what may be a new fitness plan or a nutrition plan, and I'm actually bringing this to them, many times what's happening is they sense this is a threat. This is outside their normal area, and they're not sure what's going to happen. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a challenge. It may be part of their social structure, which we'll talk about here in a moment. But there's a lot, and it's actually perceived as a threat. So many times whenever I'm actually trying to talk to somebody about what's going on in their body and what we need to do to make changes, it's sensed as a threat, and I'm not actually talking to the person. I'm actually talking to the reptilian brain, which can't really understand what I'm saying. So what's happening there is they're going into fight, flight, or freeze. So for somebody, this may be, whoa, this is way too much for me, and I'm out of here. I don't want to talk about this, can't handle this, and I'm done. The fight is going to be basically telling me, again, the excuses, why this isn't going to work. Here's what's going on. I can't do this. I can't do that. From a nutrition plan, you're going to be taking away my favorite foods, or I can't eat vegetables. They're going to come up with a lot of excuses. That's actually considered the fight. And then freeze basically is they're going through the motions, but they're not seeing really any change within that. They're coming in, maybe they're seeing it, but they're really not achieving anything that they want to do. And then from their standpoint, that would be my fault because I'm not either pushing them hard enough, or my programs are not really giving them what they need to do to be successful. So in essence, it's really the reptilian brain that we're talking to here, and it's not this logical thing that I can do. I can give you all the reasons why. I can give you the health reasons. I can give you how it can affect all parts of your life. But if you can't reason through this, then this is not going to work. So if we're talking to the reptilian brain, you're really, really not going to work with me that well. Then we have the midbrain, which is really the limbic system. This could also be considered the mammalian or the chimp brain. And what's happening here is this is about social hierarchy. This is about community and where I fit into it. So if I'm talking to, again, somebody about nutrition and we're making recommendations about what they should not, maybe some changes within a nutrition plan or the amount of exercise that they're doing, whatever it may be, this may be a threat to their social hierarchy. So what'll happen here is they know that this should be done and that they should be doing this. Again, from a human brain standpoint, I understand that these are good things for me. But if I have a social structure around me that is, if I have to make these changes, what about the other people? And if they don't want to make those changes, then I'm going to fail at that. Or that means that I'm going to be alone because I'm changing the way I'm eating. It means maybe I can't go out with my friends because they're all going out drinking on a Saturday night, or they're all going out for dinner all the time, and the places that they're choosing are not going to be what is going to be for me nutritionally so that I can be my best. So whenever you get into that social structure versus the individual, I can't overcome many times that social hierarchy. So really I sense a threat there to my social hierarchy and I shut down. So I'm actually going to leave that structure as well. Or I'm going to stay within that structure. I'm going to leave the program that's going to be helping me. And at the same time, as if that threat is long enough, we're actually going to go into kind of pass the baton down to that lizard or reptilian brain as well. And we really go into that fight, flight, or freeze. So this is potentially, when we're working on stuff, we're not really working from the human part of the brain. We're actually working from these more ancestral parts of the brain, so to speak. Because we have a neocortex. And our neocortex, and specifically our prefrontal cortex, is all about our self-actualization. This is our reasoning. This is our cognition and our language skills. So this is where we actually get to reason through things. So again, if I'm reasoning with somebody from a fitness or a nutritional standpoint, they get this. They know that this would be beneficial to them. But again, why are they not doing this? Why are they not following through? Why is it so hard whenever they know logically that they should do it? So what's really funny is that even though we are very cognitive in nature and we're human, because of these other parts of the brain, the midbrain and the reptilian brain, so to speak, are not, because they do not feel safe with what's going on, they're actually going to prevent the human brain from actually going and doing its normal job. It actually senses threat to some part of its structure. So whether it's the reptilian or whether it's the mammalian brain. So it's really kind of a long way of thinking about it, but it actually is kind of logical in a sense. So if I'm sensing threat, I don't have to think through things, right? If you're under attack, you don't want to be going, oh, am I going to reason with this bear or this lion or this attacker or whatnot? No, actually, I want my automatic defense mechanisms to kick in. It's much more prehistoric than we are. We don't have as many of those lions in the woods that are attacking us, but it's still there. It's still part of who we are. And so we have to figure out how to be able to utilize this the best. So what's happening many times whenever somebody says, hey, I want you to think about this from a nutritional standpoint, and I want you to exercise more, I want you to eat better, and you're just going, this is not what I want to do. You know, if you're not sleeping well, and if it's, I'm arguing with my spouse. If I'm arguing with my spouse, I'm also under threat, right? This is not necessarily the place that I want to be. And whenever I'm under threat, I'm not going to digest my food because my body shuts down non-essential systems. So now I can't digest my food well. My brain shuts down blood flow to the prefrontal cortex because it doesn't need to go into reasoning. We've got basically blood flow that just goes to our muscles and to our skin for us to fight and flight, whatever we need to do there. So when we're under stress, we're under a threat versus stress. Threat really is stress, and stress really is threat. So we want to kind of figure out how do we make these other parts of our brain safe. And we can really do this through breathing. And we'll talk a little bit more about this in an upcoming episode, but it's really about how we breathe and actually shutting down the sympathetic nervous system and more into a parasympathetic system so we can actually reach our higher reasoning, our higher function. So it's a long way. This is a longer touchcast and podcast, but I want you to kind of think about it from that standpoint. We're animal people that we're talking to, and we want you to kind of think about it. This is not the exact model of how the brain actually works, but it's a great from a model of standpoint of reasoning and understanding what's going on. So anyway, next week we'll be talking a little bit more about fitness, and we can actually follow up on this a little bit more. But if you have questions on this stress and threat theory and concepts that we go with, let us know. We'd be happy to hear what you have to say about that. So you can let us know at highperfliving.com, or you can just kind of leave a review here on iTunes, on Spreaker, Stitcher, or even here on Touchcast. Let us know what you think, and we'll talk to you real soon. Have a great day. This is Ryan Smith.